Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be making over this console table that I got just off of a free group in my area on Facebook. And there is just a little bit of damage, really not too much. It's in fairly good shape. It's definitely not real wood. It's super light and it's not great quality. There is just a missing handle, and then it looks like they had maybe put some duct tape or something on the back, but luckily it is on the back and you won't be able to see it. I'm going to try and get that off as much as I can and also fill those holes. First things first, we have to remove the hardware. With any furniture makeover, you want to make sure you are giving your pieces a really good clean. I'm just using some Simple Green all-purpose cleaner, but any degreaser will do. I like to wear gloves because I have my water super hot. I find it just gets the pieces extra clean. So we're going to do a once over. If it was extra dirty, sometimes you should go back and do another cleaning before rinsing it off. But I just do it usually once. Most of my pieces aren't too crazy dirty, and then I just go in and wipe away all that cleaner with just some clean water. Cleaning your pieces also gives you some time to assess any damage that could be present, and I found out that this one drawer was broken, so I just need to restaple it in there and it'll be good as new. Once everything was clean and dry, I'm going to fill the hardware holes because the handles that I have, which are just standard size handles, are just slightly different than the holes in this. So unfortunately, we're just going to have to do a little bit more work, but I really didn't like the handles that it came with. I have an extra set that I could have probably put in there that were similar to what was already in there, but it's just not the style, I was going for. For filling the holes, I chose to use this Wood Pro all-purpose wood filler. I wish I had just went straight to Bondo because this stuff really only works for very small scratches. I find it just ends up sanding away too easily. I just ended up using it anyways because, like I said, the holes were so close to the new handles that I had chose that you can't even tell, even though it is not perfect. This is just for my kitchen, so I'm not really too concerned, but like I said, you can't even notice it at all. And you have to be really careful when you're doing this before doing primer, because if you apply any water to this wood filler, it will start dissolving. So I just applied a fairly thick layer and made a mess, but that's okay. We're just going to sand it off, but you just want to make sure that you are filling the holes. Usually you want to go a little bit past the point, so you want to overfill it, so that way when you sand it off, you're not going to be sanding into the hole. So I'm just using a 220 grit sandpaper and lightly going over all of the spots and the entire table, smoothing out all of the wood filler and also scuff sanding the entire piece, so that way my paint is going to have something to adhere to. You should never skip scuff sanding a piece. It will help your paint adhere and it will make your paint job last a lot longer than if you were to skip that step. Once I was done getting all of the flat surfaces with the sander, I went and hand sanded around the edge just to make sure that I got every little spot while scuff sanding, because if you miss those little spots, your paint will definitely start peeling and just the finish will not last as long on those spots if you don't go through and hand sand. So you can see here that the handles that I want to use are just a bit smaller than the holes. So I didn't even bother marking off anything. I just drilled right next to it because it was so close. Obviously, if you had quite a bit of a difference, you'll definitely want to mark off where you are drilling your holes, so that way you don't have to refill and then drill again. And then it's good. So then I just move on to the other drawers. After all of the sanding was done, I went ahead and wiped off the entire piece and the drawers with a damp rag. I like to have 2 damp rags just so I can make sure that all of the dust is gone. And then I'm just double checking where I put the wood filler. As I had mentioned before, you want to be careful when you are wiping down the surface after you put that wood filler on, because it does tend to start wiping away and it'll start dissolving. So just want to make sure that everything is smooth before we move on to priming. So I'm using Kiehl's Restoration Water-Based Primer. It's tinted to a gray because I am painting this piece black. And I actually had filmed this back in November, I believe. I'm just now getting around to editing and posting it because I was pregnant and I had the baby in January. So things have just been super busy that it took me a little bit to edit this and post it. But the piece has actually held up really great, and I am super surprised being a water-based primer compared to my regular Zinsser's Bin shellac-based primer. It is a really strong primer and I really like it, but this is a great alternative if you're not wanting to use an oil-based primer. It's so much easier to clean out of your paint gun, and I'm really looking forward to start spray painting in the summertime. I wasn't able to last year because I was pregnant and I just was being very cautious. So I'm really looking forward to flipping more furniture and creating more content for you guys. So definitely looking forward to getting back out there. As always, we are just doing a thin coat, and I only did one coat of primer. I usually find that that is more than enough to give your paint something more to adhere to. I find when you're using a good quality paint that only one coat of primer is really needed unless you need to block stains. So follow your heart, but I find one coat of primer works great. This primer does level really nicely, but I do like to go ahead and just take a fine grit sanding pad and just go through and get rid of any little bumps that could have happened. Sometimes if the primer and paint level really nicely, I don't really think that it's necessary to actually go through and sand off the entire piece. Sometimes you can just get away with just sanding the top, which is, you know, everyone's looking at the top of something. So sometimes it's good to just go through the top and the drawer fronts, but I don't find that you always need to sand every little crack and crevice after your paint has been applied, but it's totally up to you on what finish you're looking to get. And then always just wipe away any sanding dust that accumulates when you're sanding. For this piece, I'm using House and Canvas in Shadow, which is just a black. It's going to look really nice on this piece, and this paint is really great. It goes on so dark. I think I only did 2 coats, and then maybe there was just a couple of little touch-ups that I had to do. I find when you're using a roller, you do get more paint on your piece than if you're using a brush. I really hate using brushes. I don't like brush marks. With the roller, I always get a really smooth finish. I never get any texture, and these are just Home Depot rollers, nothing too fancy, and it works great. This paint is actually the best paint that I've had that's a chalk paint that levels. Compared to Fusion, sometimes I find Fusion, it gets a little bit of a texture, and I think that's because it's just an all-in-one, but this House and Canvas, you do have to top coat it if you want it to actually last for a while, and it levels so smoothly. I really like this paint. For my top coat, I'm using my usual Varathane Diamond Wood finish. I actually had some left over from a previous project that was tinted already, and I don't even know how long I had this for, but don't just throw away your tinted top coats. I find it keeps perfectly well in a mason jar, and this just helps prevent streaking with dark colors. If you add a little bit of the paint to this top coat and then just apply a very thin coat over all the paint, I think I did probably 3 coats. It's really hard to recall what I did when I refinished this in November, but I'm trying my best. I think I did 3 coats, and like I said, it's held up really wonderfully, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. In the areas I can't reach on the console table, I do use a brush to get into all the cracks and crevices. I only do this for the first coat to make sure that every single little bit of this is coated with the top coat, and then the second and third I just go through and use my sponge. If you miss a spot with the top coat, you will see a sheen difference. Because this is a satin sheen and the House and Canvas paint is chalk paint, it's very matte, so you want to make sure that you are getting every little bit that's painted, or you definitely will see that sheen difference. When I put top coat on the top of this table, this is going to go against everything you've probably seen on YouTube and even some of my previous videos, and the reason being is that this only works if you have a small area surface, and also depends on your climate, humidity, etc. I just put it on so quick. It doesn't matter what direction. I go extremely quick, and then I go straight down in lines. Usually everyone tells you to do thin, straight lines, but if you have a small surface and you can finish it super fast, you just put it on as fast as you can, and then you make sure to go in straight lines. Doing this has made my finish 100 times better. Again, this might not work for you. It all depends on your situation, but I find it works for me as long as it's just a small surface and I can do it before the top coat dries. The trick to not getting a streaky finish is doing it fast and doing thin coats. And when you do it this way, you're getting the thinnest coat possible. And then you can apply more and more coats as you want. And now we're finally done. Let's have another look at the before. Now here's the after.